I wanted to discuss pride because I think pride is an important aspect in healing, because when we reflect upon ourselves, we're reflecting upon both our actions done to us, but also being able to see our firmly held beliefs in a different perception. And sometimes the thing that we mistake as pride gets in the way of that. And it's looking at pride from a different perspective. Is it actually pride that we're feeling? And I will touch upon narcissism, because in my explanation it probably seems like I'm explaining narcissists, but I'm actually not. So we'll actually explain a little bit about pride as far as from what I've experienced interacting with narcissists, their version of it. Why touch upon pride? Because pride sometimes gets often mistaken for ego. We talk about our ego. That person's very egotistical. They're very full of themselves. Our ego is just a collection of our experiences. It's the default mode network. It's the midline structure of our brain. Our collective experiences that know us as us. So in many good ways, an ego is a healthy thing. You may come across, and I've definitely come across, where people say you've got an ego issue, or you've maybe had a discussion with someone about something that they feel very strongly on. They have very firm beliefs, and you're just merely explaining it from a different perception, because it touches upon things where that firmly held belief starts to get a little bit shaky. You can actually bear the brunt of being told that you have ego issues. And I did in another chat where if it's a collection of our collective experiences, it's kind of like going, well, what part of my experiences am I actually having an issue in interacting with you? In many regards, pride is only one part of our experience, and things that we have achieved, things that we feel good about, things that we've done, it might not be big achievements, it might just be helping someone, that we feel a sense of humility within ourselves. We feel proud of ourselves. We feel that we've done something. The other aspect, we can mistake pride when we go upon a healing journey, because if we've got very firm held beliefs about who we are, how we identify it with something, or how we've been carrying ourselves through life, how we identify with ourselves and how we identify with others, how we know of ourselves and how we know of others, and also how we've built up our life, the foundation of our life, either a life around or a business around or even an organization around these beliefs. When there is a perceived challenge or just merely a different perception about what we are firmly holding upon, because anything that we firmly hold on to becomes rigid, or doesn't take on new things, it doesn't adapt in a way. Now, there's some things where holding on to our sense of identity is a very good thing to do, because it's how we know of ourselves. There might be certain aspects that need modification or changing, or I guess reducing of intensity of, but we need a sense of self to be able to relate to other senses of self, other identities. And we can mistake pride sometimes, simply on a healing journey, as not pride but a protective mechanism. Someone is challenging or perceived to be challenging our view of ourselves or our view of others, these firmly held beliefs that we have of ourselves and of others. And we've got this person that's starting to reflect this back to us and saying, this might be creating issues for yourself or for other people. It can be very scary to change. People don't like change. People like familiar. People like to know what is going to happen on the next step. They need that timeline of events to know when is something going to be over. And in many ways, when we start to address some of these issues, it's starting to lean into that resistance that is protecting some vulnerabilities of ourselves that we know of ourselves that may be mistaken as a pride. But when we firmly hold on to something, we can accidentally slip into a form of denial, where we don't want to accept a different belief of something, a different point of view. So therefore we go deeper into our belief system, even though there might be facts, evidence, clear evidence, whatever it is. It's more like, well, this is becoming uncomfortable for me, so therefore I need to go deeper into my belief. Now, when we start to heal it's leaning into that uncomfortableness to actually go from very closed-minded to very open-minded, to be able to hold different beliefs. It doesn't mean that you have to fill up your cup with all these new beliefs and you've got more things to think about. It's kind of like holding a space for different possibilities of how things may have affected us. That keeping a stiff upper lip might have just been that protective mechanism to get through hard times, but we don't have to remain hard. That we can be vulnerable, that we can lean into those uncomfortable emotions, and it's not a sign of weakness that we have to be proud of and protect ourselves. It's a sign of knowing that when we're injured, we need to attend to that pain. And when we attend to something, we can actually have more freedom of movement and more freedom to see different perspectives. And definitely on a healing journey, it's leaning into those vulnerabilities of, well, perhaps it's not my shame to carry. Perhaps I wasn't to blame. Perhaps I was to blame. Perhaps it's okay to feel this anger so I don't feel so wound up all the time. So being able to lean into that discomfort actually creates more comfort, because we're starting to address where the hurt is rather than saying that the hurt doesn't affect us. Being proud that we can just stay hard and like soldier on sort of thing. Eventually, like with all these trees, if they stayed hard, next time there's a big wind, they're going to fall over. There wasn't that flexibility to go with the flow, to be able to take on beliefs, hold space for them, even if they don't mean that a complete change of our own self. It means that, well, I could sort of see it from their point of view, I can see it from my point of view. It doesn't mean that I have to completely change my point of view, but some of that might actually help me. It's kind of like where I talked about there's no best advice, but there's the advice that works for you. Everyone's got great advice, but it's working out what of that advice works for you. There's plenty of diet advice, but does that diet advice apply to you? There's plenty of health advice, but does some of that health advice apply to you? Because I don't have to worry about diabetes medication because I don't have diabetes. So it's not information that I need to absorb in, but it's information that I can be aware of to help others. And creating that awareness creates a better awareness of ourselves. Now, I was talking about narcissism and all that, where it's a different form of pride. From what I've experienced interacting with them, is not so much the pride, it's they misinterpret it to being a sense of importance, or their pride is their importance. And this shows up where they may have had past achievements that they've actually achieved. They haven't just adapted from someone else, but that's very important to them. And their importance means that nobody else is important to actually be important. So it's their own form of importance that they are actually importing upon themselves and deporting everyone else's importance. No one else is allowed to have importance within their area. And this can show up within, like, say if they've done something in the past and you're trying to have a conversation, they might even ask how your day was. And when you start to talk and start to speak of something that might be of an achievement to you, that means that the limelight is off them. So they might just butt in halfway through your conversation and start talking about how great they are, or how great they've done something and how important they are. And over time, this importance will take on a modification to how everyone saw them as this great thing, to where it becomes almost like a grandiosity. It's like it's beyond what is probably what occurred. So it's kind of like you're talking about something, it's great for you, and then they butt in, it's like, oh yeah, no, it's like, and it could be not even on the topic that you're talking about, but because they want to feel important, they want to be proud of their importance, they'll see you as unimportant because they want to be heard. So that's where it differs, because their sense of achievement means that no one else is allowed to have achievements and all eyes on them. Being proud of ourselves, it's very good to be proud, because it means that, like celebrating your achievements, whether you do it big or small, it's acknowledging that the hardship that you went through had a result to it. Similar to going on a healing journey, we may look at things like the 7 steps to getting somewhere, but we always think of the 7 steps going upwards. It's like a progression upwards. We're going towards something. But in many ways, when we're dealing with traumas, when we're dealing with very uncomfortable emotions, the stairwell feels like it's actually going downwards because we're going into those uncomfortable emotions, which is another way of saying that you have to actually go through the hardship to actually get to the end result. You kind of have to go down before you can go up. So in many ways, we have to lean into that discomfort and get out of the way of ourselves and our family health beliefs to actually view things from different angles, because that becomes a growth. So it's pride befalls growth, because if we don't lean into those protective mechanisms that hold us back, then that growth is going to be very hard to actually be cultivated and nurtured to grow. But where pride won't befall the growth is when we start to lean into and start to reshape our beliefs upon ourselves by doing the kind of the practices and the processes and being honest with ourselves and humble with ourselves to know that we're not always going to be right, and not always right things we've done to us. The people that we thought always had the best intentions for us didn't actually have the best intentions for us, and the grief that goes with that, which means leaning into that, going through that process before we can start to feel better about our new sense of selves, to actually start to become proud of our healing journey and proud that we are standing up for ourselves and proud that we are no longer accepting the abuse that happened to us, because that's a very proud thing to be doing. With everything that changes. It's not a static thing. And within that, there is a letting go process of what we knew to what we will know, to how we was, to how we will be. And knowing that the change that does happen will change and flow on to your life, which will mean probably a different perception, whether you are around the same people or have to go on a different path. And when I look back to my past, who I was then to who I am now and who I was told to be is a completely different person, but not completely as in they haven't forgotten who they were. I had to go for a lot of, I guess, facing of myself, those parts that I didn't want to accept, and even how people were treating of me, to actually get out of the way of myself, to allow emotions, allow thoughts and feelings to process, to take shape, and to sometimes let go of very strong emotions. Because you can't be your new self or still being your old self, which means that there were some things that I wasn't too proud of, and there were some things that I didn't feel too good about, and how other people treated me I didn't feel too good about, and harsh truths that I had to face about my own self, and how people have been harsh towards myself, and looking at where my values sit within that through facing those uncomfortable truths. And that is not an easy thing to do, and it's not a quick timeline thing to do. So if we look at a protective mechanism as a shell, as an armory, it's starting to know that letting go of the armoring of the shell that protects us and to lean into the vulnerabilities actually makes you more stronger, because carrying around a suit of armor is very tiring and very constricting, and it's not that great for your breathing as well. I know that for certain. Being comfortable with our own inner nature is going into those dark parts of the woods and knowing that you are a part of that darkness, to actually bring a little bit more loving compassion towards that part that you might have been scared of within yourself, or told to be scared of, to actually get to the nice happier parts of the woods. So yeah, I'm Dion from Eflowtion Support Services. Another way to look at pride, ego, a narcissist perceived ego, and how it actually impedes our growth sometimes by not being able to address the things that may actually be holding us back. So until the next one, bye for now.